I called Mr. Smith's special budget meeting to order. Please note the time. Ms. Wool, may I ask you to take roll, please?
Mr. Wareham.
Here.
Ms. Gardner.
Here.
Mr. Hopola.
Here.
Oh.
Mr. Janke. Hopefully he will arrive shortly. Delayed, I believe. We have a quorum. Next item is the Pledge of Allegiance. Kindly stand and face the flag. Those at home, please participate as you choose. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. The next item on our agenda is approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
I will make that motion.
Mr. Wareham, is there support for the motion to approve the agenda? Ms. Gardner?
Yep.
Having reviewed the agenda, does anyone have any additions or questions about the agenda? Hearing none, and all in favor of the motion to approve the agenda as presented, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item 4 on our agenda is public comment. We'll open the floor for 3 minutes for public comment.
I have a public comment.
In bringing an issue specifically or ideally, perhaps more appropriately, about financial matters or budgets, but it is a meeting that we will entertain any applicable public comment from anyone interested. Please identify yourself and you will have up to 3 minutes.
Thank you. This is Kristen. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can. You have 3 minutes. Kristen.
Okay, I'll get started here. So I'd like to start with an appreciation to the township. The camera is really lovely. So that really added a moment there. I already had something to thank you for, but this is so much better. So thank you for however this came together. I also want to thank you guys for the meeting notices for this meeting. The notice was posted on the website. I received an email when the board packet came. I received the special announcement notice. I'm very grateful for that. So I want to commend you on that. And I also want to commend you, Mark, and thank you in particular for the conversation that we had on Monday, and then for calling me prior to the meeting on Monday, and just say how much that has affected my week. So good job, guys. Second topic I have is on the open positions. There's currently the 2 open positions, one for maintenance and one for the Board of Review. And I sent the township an email today noting that it has not been posted on the website. Those positions haven't been posted on the website, and that I requested more information about the positions themselves. So hopefully you guys will get a chance to review that. You may have been working on the meeting today, but these are positions that you're closing as of the Wednesday, which is less than a week from now. I check the website every day, so it's really helpful for me because I'm trying to share information from the township if that's there. So if I've missed it in somewhere, please let me know, but I did scour the website and did not see it. So I'm looking for that and hope that will get posted. I was able to have a fellow Youper get me some photos of Mark. You did post in the post office, but I would love to see the website updated as well. And then the third item I have pertaining specifically to this meeting is around the budget. That I'll just let you know from a citizen's perspective that I'm listening for and it's not necessarily a line item, but just if it shows up anywhere in your discussion about how the technology is supporting the township business. And it could be anything from the camera that is supporting this meeting to the $14.99 Zoom account, to Mark having a computer that loads his emails quickly so that he's able to complete his business, to technical training and expertise to make sure that everybody is up to speed on, the ways that we get around nowadays on technology. So I'll just be listening for those, and I'm giving you a heads up during my public comment. Hopefully I said that quickly enough that it made the 3 minutes and slowly enough that you still retained it. And I appreciate the time. Thank you.
You're welcome. Is there anyone else that would like to address the board? You have up to 3 minutes. Please identify yourself.
There's no one else on.
We will close public comment at this time. Please note the time, Ms. Wall. Public comment was closed. Thank you. The next item on our agenda, budget work session, is a review of the budgets for the current fiscal year, fiscal 2021. My assumption is tonight's meeting, we will spend the majority of our time a review of current year expenditures and to the extent possible revenue to support those expenditures. Also look at where we may need to move revenue within the budget lines to address costs that have exceeded the original amount budgeted. Is that acceptable to everyone? Foundation for the meeting. May I suggest that we begin with the water system budgets for Tamarack City and Osceola, beginning with the Tamarack City Water Fund budget and ideas specific to an amendment. Please note that this budget has been reviewed at both the February and March Tamarack City Water System Advisory, and many of the recommendations that you will hear tonight are items that were discussed and embraced, accepted by the members of the Tamarack City Water System Advisory Board. Mr. Wareham, given that you are a member of that board as well, is that a reasonable summation?
I would say so, yes.
Thank you. You have before you in your packet updated budget that will show certain line items in excess of the budget or very close to the budget. Please remember that our fiscal year begins on April 1st and concludes at the end of this month. Close of business for the month would be the 31st of March relative to the fiscal year. I am working off a worksheet that may not be as contemporary as the one you have in front of you. So please, if my numbers are inaccurate, call me on it immediately and I will make the adjustment. I work primarily through the budget line relative to expenditures in the samples I'm about to share with you, or examples more appropriately, and would ask that you consider the adjustments that I'm identifying for the budget line. If you begin in the second column on your worksheet with the budget and you look at water supervisor salary, item 702 is very close to exceeding the amount budgeted. My worksheet is through February, and I'm suggesting or recommending to the board they consider an adjustment from the $5,000 budgeted to $5,300. Moving
through February through March. This is
mine, yours will say through March 17th. Okay. Mine says through February. So if there is a significant difference that takes it beyond what I am recommending, please call that out right away, because I started to transfer things over today to the new sheets and I did not get as far as I had hoped. So I apologize for that. I'm suggesting an increase from 5,000 to 5,300. Next item is phone service. We budgeted 1,600 through February. We had exceeded 1,700. Please note that there will be a significant reduction in this budget line going forward. Through Tracy's efforts, we have a new plan that has been discussed with the Tamarack City Advisory, and the rate for phone service is dropping by approximately half, is it not?
Pretty close.
So to conclude this year, I am suggesting that we increase from $1,600 to $1,825. For postage, we're already over the amount in the original budget. I am suggesting we move 750 to 1,000. Office supplies, It's maxed out. I'm suggesting we move from 300 to 400. Maintenance and repair, knowing that there was some work done recently to the truck that may be reflected on the new sheet that I don't have on mine. Grab the updated version, I apologize. Maintenance and repair. Yes, it's already up to 2,100. I am suggesting we go to 2,200, up from 2,000 for maintenance and repair. I'm looking at the water supply number. This is 802. The charges under 802 are identical through March 17th, but when you prorate out the expenses through February, they would exceed the 35,130 slightly. I am suggesting we move 35,130 to 36,000 for water purchases. Where I'm suggesting we take virtually all of the money from is line 803, water system improvements. We have 10,250 budgeted expenditures through February. I believe through March.
I'm sorry, can you, I was doing math. Can you say where you're taking it from?
Yes, I would suggest we take the money from line 803.
Okay.
Water system improvements. We reduce water system improvements to 8305. Let me run through. There's 8305 would address the water purchase amount previously identified. So it would change the salary line by $300, phone by $225, postage by $250, office supplies by $100, maintenance and repair by $200, water purchase by $870, reducing then the amount for water system improvements from $10,250 to $8,305, still leaving a substantial cushion if you prorate out the amount identified used through the 17th of March, which is $4,150. There are other lines in the budget that are showing surplus revenues relative to the expenditure against the amount budgeted. Miscellaneous expense, for example, $956. We've utilized $66 and change. We have $2,000 budgeted. Utility expenses are just under $1,500 through February. We have $2,300 budgeted. So there are other items that we could remove money from if that's the board's pleasure. But by removing it from a single source at this moment, it appears to adequately address all the anticipated increased costs by line.
We've got dues and memberships is over.
I'm sorry, dues and membership is over, or it's up to 3,000, then we would need an additional $600 approximately in dues and membership. I would suggest we take that out of either miscellaneous expense. Probably the most appropriate would be out of miscellaneous. Take $600 out of miscellaneous, reducing that to 1,400, and add that 600 to dues and memberships, bringing it to 3,100. And right now we're at through the 17th of March with no additional cost likely, Ms. Wolf?
No.
$3,046. Thank you.
What are we adding to dues and memberships?
We would add $600 to dues and memberships. We would take the $600 from item 956 miscellaneous expense, reducing it to 1,400. May I add at this moment that this is exactly what I hoped we would do. We would work through each budget individually, identifying items where we can both reduce expenses and add it to the appropriate column without changing the bottom line at all. I am also going to suggest to the board at this moment that they consider not approving the amendments until we get a chance to rework all of the sheets based on tonight's discussion
Mhm.
and present it again on Monday, the 22nd. If the board is so inclined to act at that time, they could, but we are not required to act, if I recall correctly, until the 24th, when we hold our hearing, where we could both amend this year for the final time and approve next year's
Yeah.
budget. Am I correct in
Yep.
that assumption?
Yep.
Thank you. So that's what I'm suggesting.
Mark, what for on line item 803, you wanted to change that, the water system improvements, you wanted to decrease that
To
what?
$8,305.
8305. Okay.
And
I think I'm not mathing this correctly.
That's a decrease, so not an increase.
Right.
Yeah, and that's exactly why we're doing this, because my math could be off, my calculations could be off slightly. I could have added instead of subtracted and what have you. But I have water, all of the line items that are over amounting to 1,900.
Oh, no, that's right. Okay.
We're all set?
Yeah.
I'm only right twice a day, so that's once. That means I have only one more to go, so please watch me carefully. That's pretty much it for Tamarack City.
Do we have more revenue coming? Because if you look at the revenue, it's only 99, it's supposed to be 122.
Yes.
Well,
More coming?
Yeah, she just did billing, this month for last month, so
So I
that's
don't
gotta
have to
go in
worry too
here.
much about that at all.
No, we've got 2 more months that
Not
have to
even looking
go.
at it. That's gone, okay.
no,
Yep.
let me add something to Mr. Warehams' comment, because I think it's necessary. The budget is our initial best estimate at the start of the year for both expenses and revenue. In prorating everything out, we're not going to come near the 122,300 figure relative to revenue. Right now, we're going to fall somewhere in the 112 to 116 or so range. But expenses will come in all likelihood, under 110,000. So we put a budget together that is our best estimate. So at this moment, by all appearances, we have sufficient revenue
That's fine. There's
to
question.
cover all expenses. But it's an important question to ask on, because it gives me a chance to distinguish between our actual expenses and how they factor against the budget. We're moving, as we are required to do, money around inside the budget line to make sure that our budget is as close to even relative to expenditures and what we budget for expenditures with our final amendment. Is that a correct statement? I'm looking at the clerk and treasurer for
Yes.
confirmation. Not that you wouldn't know that, Don, but I'm still relatively new at this, and I have to jettison some of my old thought processes from the agency still, so I apologize for that. But yeah, we should have more than enough revenue based on expenditures year to date to cover that. So that's what I got for Tamarack City. With regards to Osceola Township's water fund. And again, looking at the new chart for Osceola Township water. Let's see, make sure I grab the right one. That's Tamarack City. Well, we have slightly higher expenses.
Yeah, I just made a bunch of bills.
Yeah, okay, all right. I'm looking at something that's April 1st through March 8th. Again, going down the budget column only. The first item is water supervisor salary. We budgeted 13,500, and through the 8th of March, we'd already spent close to 16,000. I am recommending that we put some prorating actual expenditures. We raised the budget to $17,350 for line 702. Payroll tax, we're already above the budget. Again, prorating it out, I'm recommending we move it from 2,000 to 2,550. Telephone is already in excess of the budget. I'm recommending we raise it from 1,000 to 1,150. And dues and memberships through the 8th of March are already $1,124 and change over budget. I'm not certain we have anything more coming in on that for this fiscal year. I'm recommending we raise it from $4,000 to $5,200. That is a total of $5,750.
What was that number?
5,750 in expense transfers or budget transfers. Where I am suggesting we take it from is line 745, maintenance and repair, which is budgeted at $56,000. And through the 8th of March, according to this chart, we have spent less than 17,500 on maintenance and repair, or about 31% of the amount budgeted. I am suggesting we reduce the budgeted amount to $50,250.
Say that again.
$50,250, and that is a $5,750 reduction in that budget line, and use that revenue across the four aforementioned categories. And the budget in that fashion. Total expenses on your worksheet through March are almost 156,155.9 would be rounding up, leaving us, if you will, excess revenue already collected against those expenses of over $16,000. So revenue in is at 172.2 in round numbers against expenses of 156 in round 1,000 in round numbers. And as a consequence, looking at this, I'm prorating out our total revenue for Osceola Water at approximately $205,000 versus a budget of $215,800. But expenses are coming in at this moment so much below that we should have additional revenue in this budget to carry forward into next year.
What, can you repeat, what was water supervisor salary line 702? You increased it to
$17,350,
350.
or
Okay.
yeah, an increase of $3,850.
I was $50 off and I couldn't figure out where I missed that 50. Okay.
Yeah, I may have misspoken myself, so.
Okay.
Does everything add up or check out? So this is my recommendation for the Osceola water system budget. So that takes care of the two water systems relative to recommendations for your review and consideration. The last one relative to budget would be looking at Osceola Township General. I have two worksheets on this, so let me make sure I get them both out here. Please bear with me for a moment. I want to make sure that I'm dealing with both worksheets. There we are. Okay. My initial worksheet, so please, if anything that does not look right to you or sound right to you, please stop me, because I worked with one April 2020 through February 2021, and then began to transfer over to the new one, but I'm not sure I completed all of my work. So I will go through this very carefully, and please note changes from your perspective as you go through yours. The first one would be payroll tax, line 718. We budgeted 5,500. We're already in excess of 7,300.
I've got 8.
Yeah, and then looking at the new one, it's up over 8. So I am recommending we go to 8,300. I'm looking at the clerk and the treasurer saying that I think I'm okay there with that recommendation, because I don't think there's any appreciable payroll that would take us past that, is there? Between now and the end of the,
We have one more that's gonna go on
Yep,
this.
you have one more.
one more.
We get paid one more time.
We have to put the one for March on the 31st,
Okay,
because that's how
okay.
it started.
Right.
And noting that, that number will probably have to change from 8,300 to probably 9,000. So we're gonna have, just to be on the safe, we'd have to add another 700 for what I'm suggesting.
We'll make it 9,300.
Or we could make it 9,300, you find another thousand, so that, thank you, let's pick up on Mr. Worm's.
93?
We go to 9,300. Means on my worksheet, I'm gonna have to find another $1,000, hang on, okay? The next item is contract services. The new sheet, we're already at about 41,000. Recommending we go to 42,000. In a conversation relative to the repair that would normally fall under this category, I believe, to repair the road out to the sand pit. That will take place in the late April to mid-June timeframe. Depending on weather, it will fall clearly into next fiscal year, though we have an offer. We can take it out of next year's budget versus this year's budget. So I'm recommending we go to 42,000 for line 722.
Question mark, and I don't know where this fits. Remember Bob was talking at the last meeting about, I think it was the contract with the vacuum test and that stuff? And he said all that was going up, but I don't know what was gonna affect. this
Yeah,
year
that
at all,
will
or
take
it's gonna
next
be-
year's budget and in the water system budget.
Okay,
Yeah, anything that I think Bob is referencing, thank you for the reminder, has to do with after the end of this fiscal year. So we'll have more vacuum tests. I think he was talking about 4 at most recent
They were
meeting.
Something
increasing
like
by
that.
a ton,
Yeah.
so
You're absolutely right, Don.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to account for that in next year's budget.
Mhm.
I just wanna make sure none of it
Yeah.
this year, so, okay.
Office expenses already exceed the budget. I'm recommending we move from 5,575 to 7,300.
Somebody what?
7,300.
It's already
That's
gone over that.
7407.
It's already gone over that one too.
7407 already.
All right, then I would recommend adding another 500 to make that 78, and I'll need to find 15. So we'll go to 78 on that. And get everything transferred. I apologize for that. That's on me. 730. Telephone is already up to 15.
Telephone is at 9:30.
939.
939. And let's see, where we are with telephone. Well, we should go then to 1,050. Next one in excess of budget is operating supplies.
Where is that?
It's on the next page.
Oh, thank you.
Myself. Operating supplies. We're at almost 3,000. I was recommending 31. I don't know that that will hold up. With any
I'm
interest,
pretty much done
Okay.
paying bills.
then I would recommend we go from 2,500 to 3,100, $3,100 for operating supplies. Are there any others that you identify on this budget that are
No.
over?
No.
I think I've identified all of them. Thank you for the assistance, bringing them up to speed. Relative to revenue available.
One question before you.
Yes, sir.
Utilities expense is at 94. I mean, there's like $200.
Where are you?
Is that enough? It's 2845 and when we budgeted 3,000. Is that enough for the next month or no, do we have to?
Anything that comes in now I'm pretty much paid. I think everything is kind of paid. Anything that comes in now is probably due in April. So anything that's due in April, I have to pay in April. So it'll be
Okay.
next year.
Cool.
We should be okay.
Good question, Don. Thank you. I missed that one over here.
If it's not, then, but we should be okay.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Relative to available revenue, we have paid all of our audit costs for the current year. We will budget the audit for this year out of next year. We have a $19,000 budget line for audit. I'm recommending we remove $4,000 from this line, making it $15,000 audit. Insurance expenses, I believe we are paid up through the fiscal year, are we not? Or is there one more payment that has to come out of this year's budget?
I feel like we spent all that in audit. Maybe not.
Well, we also took resources from the water systems to pay for the audit.
True, that would probably be the difference. Okay,
That's
never
what
mind.
I'm suggesting may be the difference,
Yep.
because both water systems
right.
had an $1,100 charge or something
Yeah.
close to
Yep,
that.
you're right, you're right. How much did you say? I stopped. thinking.
4,000.
Audit, I'm
4,000?
suggesting we take 4,000, and you do know that with Krista's declaration of me being right again,
I know
I hit my limit.
that's twice.
That's
Yeah.
Maybe,
twice.
maybe you should adjourn the meeting right
I
now.
was just gonna
We're
say,
almost done
It would've been, you've been right all day.
well, please be on guard to even greater extent, because I've reached my limit for being right.
So
I
we-
should-
We'll double
well,
and triple
understand
check.
If I do get a third one, and I'm down to just one for Monday, I'm suggesting that under insurance expenses, we reduce it to 9,000, taking 3,000 from there.
Okay.
Under training,
Wait a minute.
I'm sorry,
You said take 3,000 out of there?
yes, it reducing 12,000 to 9,000 on line 810.
Okay.
844, excuse me, 884. I'm going to assume that we're going to take board of review training costs out of this line.
Or what's the, what's board of review then? What's 802 then?
Oh, I'm sorry. I always
We don't
thought,
even have anything budgeted for 802,
Oh,
so
okay.
when I pay for the border review, it's probably gonna come out of training.
Okay.
How much was that? That was
Well,
only like.
$90. Well, I'm suggesting we leave $500
Yeah.
in there and
Yeah.
take 1,500 out, so you do have some resources that cover the
Mhm.
training costs for the
Yeah.
board of review members that participated.
Yeah.
I'm also suggesting, since no one to my knowledge went to any conferences per se,
No.
that we could reduce that. Now, here's what gets tricky. I had not accounted for all of the additional expenses. May I suggest that we leave $500 in that line as well?
So take
Take
1,500 from.
1,500 out of there.
Wait a minute.
Sure.
Are you doing a running tally there? to
Well, I
see-
was, and I think you went over. Hold on.
I want to make sure we remove enough revenue.
Okay, I get 9,025 for everything that we moved. So that would be 4, 5, 6, 7, 85. So we'd only need to take $525.
I'm not so sure that that's accurate, because you're taking out more than I had initially recommended, and I was at $9,000 with things I.
Oh, gosh, what did I miss? You had, okay,
We did add a fifth, we added a little bit more than your original was somewhere.
Yeah.
How did we do that?
We added a little bit more under, I believe it was telephone. We
Yeah.
went to 1,050 up from what I said was 920. So we added 400
yep, I got
for
that.
telephone versus,
I had to, you added 3,800 to payroll taxes,
correct,
2,000 to contract services,
correct.
2,225 to office expense.
That's it. Yeah,
Okay, 400 to telephone
400 to
and
telephone,
600 to operating supplies.
operating supplies.
Was that everything?
I think so, yes.
Okay, let me add it again, because I'm,
Well, we're looking at those numbers, Krista, we can't end up with a 25. We have to end up with a 50 or an 80. Because we didn't take a $25 anymore, a $75 anymore.
So what are you,
uh,
what are you showing as your total?
9,025. I had office expense increased by 2,225. Is that,
Oh, that's right. It's
Correct?
increase amount. You're right.
Yep.
Okay.
You're right.
Okay,
so the total of all of those, I get 9,025.
and so additional revenue needed beyond what we've already identified. 4,000 out of audit, 3,000 out of insurance, 1,500 out of training, and 1,500 out of conference. Gets us,
1,500 would be too much, so we, all we
Okay.
would need is 525 out of,
525,
and take 525 out of conferences.
is that 886 conferences?
Yes,
And how much are
886,
we taking from that?
525.
525, so it reduces to
That'll balance.
1475. Okay. Got it. Okay,
So that's 7, 8, 925 we're taking out total from
Yeah.
these.
that matches up with your math?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
$9,000, 9,025.
again, when we look at revenue, relative to Osceola Township, we're looking at we still show it at 75,551. Tracy's in the process, along with Krista, of moving some, obviously, revenues coming in that we need to account for, but of real significance, and they're working on the correction, is relative to the budget, is that item 4688, reimbursement for Mason project.
Oh,
You have
yeah.
83,000 in brackets there. That is actually the 6th Street project in Tamarack City, the payment to Mr. Seiler, Bill Seiler Contracting. And that money will come and is available already to us in the form of the FEMA grant, which covered part of that storm drain line, and the precinct 1 commitment to the balance of about $31,000 the board approved. So we aren't really in deficit. That 83,672, it just inadvertently got into the budget in that way, and it will be corrected, I think, before our Monday meeting, is it not? That the hope is to have that identified and backed out. So we add that revenue back in, and all of a sudden we start closing the gap, and then with receipts that are coming in, we'll be in a much better position next week to look at revenues that we already have. So all we're really addressing this evening, if that's acceptable to everyone, is moving the budgets to a point where its bottom line remains the same. Line item amounts have changed to make sure that there is sufficient amounts in those lines to address the cost already existing or anticipated. And we've identified for the most part where the revenue will come from a budget standpoint. And then we will make all those adjustments and then be ready to discuss them in earnest on Monday night. If we're satisfied, we can approve them at that time. If not, we can adjust again and approve them on Wednesday. Is that acceptable to everyone?
Mhm.
Thank you. Does anybody on the board have a question, comment, or concern about what we've just done? Everyone
No, good
satisfied
job,
with
Mark.
the work done to date and then the process going forward?
Mhm. Thank you.
Pretty much
That was,
what we-
you did a good job.
Pretty much what we used to do every year, except you did most of the legwork. Remember, we hacked those numbers all together, but you kind of took care of all that for us, so that's.
Well, with a lot of help. This has been really an across the township effort, and I'm grateful from the Water Advisory Board's input, whether in Tamarack City or here, from the Township Board and from the individual members of the board, plus drawing on when appropriate feedback that comes in about where to spend money and what our priorities should be from other members of the staff or the community at large when desired by them. If I may move off of the amendments, since they will now require some work, and just talk very generally about process and next year's budgets. Once we approve these amended budgets, they really become the template for the new fiscal year. But there's a lot of things that we have talked about over the course of this year that I think we need to draw into our conversations next week relative to our budgets going forward. We've already mentioned one, and that is the Backy test that Bob's brought up relative to the water system. I've made a few very elemental notes based on paperwork I'm reviewing that has come into the township over the past year. This is not a prioritized list, but things that we need to keep in mind and take into account going forward. The ice rink. I'm still playing phone tag with our insurance company relative to the process, but I would like to put out, and we'll emphasize this next week, a call for bids for a number of things relative to the ice rink. A concrete slab, replacing the boards, what it would cost to put up an expanded warming shed or updated warming shed. Mr. Janke has talked repeatedly about some type of cover or what have you. Obviously, there's not enough money in the township budget at this moment to address all of these issues. But there is a second, for example, Portage Health Foundation grant opportunity for recreational activities that we're not quite in a position yet, in my opinion, to go forward with an application, but their grant applications are cyclical, and we know that they'll come around again. We want to position ourselves with reasonably timely estimates and then plans to go forward relative to improving the ice rink.
There's usually rec grants from the DNR too.
Yes, thank you. I knew there was somebody else, but I keep saying MDOT when it's really the DNR. Thank you. I appreciate the clarification. I'm going to fall into that pit again. I'm going to say MDOT because I'm working with them on licensing and lease issues that I'll bring up in more detail next week. But suffice it to say that I'll try to remember it's the DNR and not the Department of Transportation that has the grants. Thank you. But other things that come to mind, the Mason Sewer Project budget. We're going to need an operating budget for that. People will be coming online as early as I believe this May and hooking up to the system. We'll be coordinating with UP Engineering in that effort, since there are revenues in the grant to help us address costs of the project for, I believe, a 12-month period from point of operation. A truck or trucks need to be looked at. Our current maintenance truck is in almost constant need of repair. So fixing the ball field, water system hoist that Bob is aware of. He and Aaron have talked about it. Mr. Matt Polk has joined us. But we need to look at incorporating that cost for that, I believe, chain hoist for moving pipe into the budget for the coming year. We need to look at, generally speaking, road, storm drain, sewer et al. I've had already comments, calls, and at least one piece of correspondence about standing water, and understandably so. I did drive down Dogwood today, and I have it on my list, for example, to call the road commission about repairing potholes. You turn onto Dogwood from Main Street going east, and you run into potholes before you've gone 10 feet. That may be just a slight exaggeration, and then further down there are even more significant ones. We'll see what we can do to get the road commission here to at least get some fill in as quickly as possible. But we've talked about repairs needed at sandy bottoms, stuff like that. So all of these things need to be incorporated into our discussion going forward, along with compensation, salaries, and a review of our benefit package where applicable and appropriate. So we will take a much more comprehensive look at our budget, not just next week as we begin to put things together, but as we have done this year, throughout the year, looking at revenue availability, what we're going to have to do, what grants are available. And then to be very forthright, we need to look, I'll hone in on the water systems at this moment. We need to have a very serious discussion about rates. Mr. Wareham and I have been on the Water Advisory Board down in Tamarack City since its origins, if I recall correctly. And Don, please correct me if I'm wrong. The only increase other than an occasional water rate hike driven by Michigan American wholesale rates going up has been I think a 50-cent increase in the administrative charge over the roughly 9-year period from $35.50 to $36. Is that?
That's the only one that I remember. We just did a year ago, but that was to cover Northern Michigan American Water.
Yep.
That was actually 2 years ago now.
Yeah.
Now that's the only one, and again, that now because of their raises is starting to shrink. You know, so yeah, they've got to be looking at.
So we'll probably have a much more serious conversation about the budgets for next year as it pertains to the water systems around rates, administrative charges, and what we are going to have to do, not just to sustain what we have, but with Mr. Matt Folk here, he's mentioned on more than one occasion the age of the current pumps here in Dollar Bay and the very likely need to upgrade our pumps for the system in the not too distant future. We need to look seriously as we deliberate the budget and throughout next fiscal year, how we're going to go about addressing that. I think we had one pump go down this current year for a period of time, and you waited, if I may, quite a period of time for replacement parts before we were able to get our backup pump or main pump back online and not rely on the backup pump. So they're older pumps, and Bob has suggested a type of pump, but I cannot recall a price for one, but they are, I imagine, rather expensive.
Submersible, you're probably looking at 70,000
Per pump or for a pump?
a pump.
A pump. So we now have a target figure out there that we may have to address in the not too distant future. So I'm continuing my review of correspondence that's come in. I'm suggesting that going forward, we look at everything from the operating expenses of the township, the salaries for people that work for the township, and try to come up with a very practical and pragmatic way to address increases for not just staff, but for line items that require it to address pressing needs here in the township. I don't have anything specific at this moment. Ideally, by the time we get to our discussion Monday, and certainly by Wednesday, I will have at least some ballpark figures and some estimates as to what it may cost to do some of these things as I go through the paperwork and project out. I'm looking across the entire workforce of the township to include the positions that have become open. I'm looking at what we pay the advisories for the water system, et cetera. So it will be as inclusive and comprehensive as I can make it, with the understanding that what next week will be is our start point. That we'll be addressing these issues to the best of our ability throughout the fiscal year, as both resources and circumstances permit. So I really don't have a lot more on that right now, except that I'm, with your assistance, certainly continuing to work forward towards that. I will be calling on everybody to help with the process, as I've already done. It's a reminder, not a contemporary request, if you will, because it's ongoing. And we have, I believe, budgets in from the fire departments, or at least they are aware of it and have the timeline. So hopefully we'll have all that information, be able to address those budgets as well, which are needed before we make decisions on the 24th. So, does anyone have questions of me relative to process and anticipated timelines for these activities?
For the water system, are assuming we're gonna have to come up with money for the changing out of that certain percentage of the lead goose, right? The lead goosenecks, am I saying it right? Whatever, what is the percentage we have to do per year? 3%, 5%?
You have to do 5 a year for 20 years.
5 a year. So I mean, we have to cover the cost of that as well. And that's gonna have to start this summer, right? So.
Let me add that to the list. I hadn't included that. My apologies. Thank you. Yeah, and that's why these discussions are so important, because collectively, I think we will come up with a much more comprehensive budget, certainly than I could ever do. And knowing what everybody's thoughts are is going to be helpful for me to get reasonably good drafts to you prior to next Wednesday's meeting.
Mark, this is Cindy Barth. I would like to add to your thoughts, possibly purchasing a Zoom program so that you don't have to use UP Engineering's program.
Cindy, thank you for the comment. We'll take that noted. I may have skipped over that. My apologies. I do have Zoom on my list. I'm sorry.
Good.
I'm looking at without my glasses on. It's just squiggly lines, and I apologize. Zoom is on the list.
Thank you.
Look at and discuss. Thank you. We'll note that as part of, if I make public comment. Is that acceptable to you?
That's fine.
Thank you. We'll note it as part of public comment. So, is there anything else from a board perspective that you believe we need to discuss this evening before I call for public comment formally one more time? Everyone satisfied with what we've done to date, and we'll work up the new drafts for consideration on Monday relative to the budget amendments for this year, and we will begin in earnest a more detailed discussion about the coming year's budgets. Thank you. If there is nothing else from anyone on the board, there's one last opportunity on our agenda for public comment from anybody participating. Cindy, we have already noted your comments under public comment.
Cindy, do you have anything else?
Anyone that would like to add a comment for the board's consideration?
I have a comment.
Please.
Okay.
Kristen Orby, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
You have up to 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. This has been very interesting. I'm so glad that I attended, and I'm glad that Cindy was able to join us and that we'll be able to make this recording available, because this is where our tax dollars are going. So it's a huge benefit to the community to be able to see that. The one item that I noted that I'll be watching the discussion emerge in particular, although all of them are of interest, was the water system and what could be potentially happening that could potentially affect rates there. There was a discussion a month or two ago about the comparison with the administrative fee between, it was Torch Lake or Hubble and Dollar Bay. And there's a very high third-party fee, $5.95 or $6.95, that's charged per month to the residents for the water service, whereas Osceola, I think, is charging 50 cents or something like that. And I left the discussion very grateful that Osceola Township is doing that scope in-house. And my hope was that we're not going to start charging a fee because it's happening locally. So I don't know what will happen with that administrative fee, but the water service, when it doesn't include septic, right, which, you know, we all know that we're on septic in the township, but that's just something that I am aware of. We're at $34 a month right now, I believe, at least in Dollar Bay. And I realize that there's expenses and that you're discussing different projects that need to happen. But it is not inexpensive when you consider other utilities that have to be purchased by each homeowner, as well as the fact that we're all responsible for our own septic systems. So there's nothing definitive there, just saying that I'm very interested in monitoring that cost, and will be interested in the discussion and any backup that emerges in conjunction with that. And that's my comment. Thank you.
You're welcome. May I ask you a question?
Yes.
You talked about an administrative fee.
Mm-hmm.
If I recall the conversation, may I add something?
Yes.
For your consideration?
Please.
I believe you're talking about the administrative costs for processing of payments in the Torch Lake Sewage Authority's costs for the residents of Tamarack City on the system versus the cost associated with billing for people in, I believe, Torch Lake Township.
That sounds right.
Water system issue per se, if I recall correctly, it is a sewer system rate difference between the participating communities. Am I correct in my assumption?
I thought there was a standalone fee, and I thought Don weighed in on it at the time. There's a monthly standalone fee because a third-party billing service sends out the water bills. Don, do you remember?
Oh yeah, I remember it well. Matter of fact, I'm still working on it. That's what it was, but come to find out, Torch Lake had done some extra things, and part of their fee is billed to those people, and they voted on it and accepted it, that to pay that extra fee for this addition that happened to their system. So I'm not so much complaining about our fee to their fee. I'm complaining that the sewer authority itself is not paying their share, is what my grief is, but it'll come out.
Okay. Can I add one little addendum to my comment? And
this doesn't have at least 30 seconds left.
Okay, this is all 30 seconds, and it doesn't need to be reflected in the minutes, but I would say that I have an out-of-state water bill, and for $62 a month, I get sewer service, I get twice a week garbage pickup, and once a week recycling, plus my water. I am a minimal water user, but there's a lot of service that I get for that. And you know, that's anecdotal and completely out of state, but it's something that, you know, I'm aware of. And I'm not sure what the other systems are charging, other neighboring areas that do offer, most of them offer both services. And once again, taking in mind that there's costs involved with running a water service. So I'm not denying those costs, only saying on the user end that I'm mindful of the charges that are being assessed per property. Thank you.
Are there any other comments under public comment? Hearing none, we'll close the second public comment section. Is there any other business to come before the board before I call for a motion to adjourn? Hearing none, a motion to adjourn is in order.
Motion.
Ms. Houle, is there support for the motion to adjourn?
I'll support it.
Mr. Wareham, all in favor of the motion to adjourn, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you, everyone. We stand adjourned.
Thank you.